off.
It is. Hey everybody, this is Mark from City Creek Bottoms, Farmstead Life, on another video. Got the privilege today to be with Mr. Billy. Some of y'all have met him at meet and greet and met him at my fire pit, and he's been in our chat a lot, and a lot of y'all know who Billy is. We're over on his property today in Shelby County, and we're going to talk a little bit about his experience he had back when he was around 10, 11 years old. Back in Talladega County, not far from where I live. So his people were from my area, and so I appreciate you, Billy, giving me the opportunity to tell your story.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I'm gonna put you on camera.
All right, yeah, come on with it. Yeah,
so,
I'm good.
You know how I am.
Yeah.
We don't try to be perfect on this. It's just about people talking. So.
Yeah.
I met Billy, well, I guess first time at the meet and greet, wasn't it?
Yes, it was at the meet and greet. Yeah, at Hollins.
Then you came to one of the fire pits at the house, and we've talked here and there, and like I said, he's in chat sometimes, and I won't come out and say his chat name, but most of y'all know who he is. So, but really appreciate you giving me the chance to let you tell your story on my channel. And
I appreciate
I love it when Alabama folks want to give it, you want to talk about it, because I can relate to it, and it just gives it more feel to it, so
right.
But tell a little bit, everybody, about yourself, what you want people to know and what you don't say it. So.
Well, I'm getting over a cough like you are. I had bronchitis last week, so that kind of took me down a notch. Been trying to get some stuff done. My ancestors were from Sylacauga, small community outside of Sylacauga. The community's Oldfield, Alabama, not too far from Hollins, where the meet and greet was.
Right.
My dad was a pharmacist in Birmingham, and I grew up in Homewood. During the summer and on the weekends, my dad would take us to Sylacauga, Oldfield, and we would spend summers with my my grandparents. And the experience I had was, I'd say it was around 76 or 77. I was about 10, 11 years old. And me and my cousin, we were where we weren't supposed to be. We were always told, do not get on other people's property, but we like to ramble around. And we were just exploring. I had a little Daisy Red Ryder BB gun, and I love shooting birds and frogs, whatever I could shoot, but I don't think I had my BB gun with me that day. Well, me and my cousin had got over on this adjacent property, and it was a pasture. It was a lot of pasture land, and this neighbor had the land in their family for years and years. It goes back to my great grandparents' time. And we were walking through this pasture, and the way it was set up, we had to cross this ditch, go across barbed wire fence, and it kind of opened up in a pasture. A lot of blackberry briars. We used to pick a lot of blackberries in there and eat them, me and my cousin. We walked in the pasture, and they had terraces set up in there, and the terrace on top of the terrace, it had grown up in some pine trees. I don't know, probably, I'd say about the size of that one right there, about a 6-inch diameter pine.
So they were still real young pines.
Yeah, they were young pines. We were kind of weaving in and out of them pine trees on top of this terrace. And the direction we were going would have been towards, we were going towards Sylacauga, which is a pretty good ways away. What do you think, 10 miles to Sylacauga from Oldfield?
I'd say about 5. Yeah,
5 miles?
Yeah, about 5, yeah.
Well, anyway, we were headed that direction, which would have been south.
Going south.
Going south.
Kind of southwest, yeah.
Well, there's a creek close to us on our left side. Well, I remember we're cutting up, hollering and everything with each other, and, you know, just like kids are. And I can remember this terrace now is about, from what I remember, it's probably, I'd say 6 feet, maybe 4 to 6 feet high.
I've seen those terraces you talking about when I lived out there.
And I remember looking off to my left, and I see something black. It's on all fours. Pine cone.
Pine cone was falling, yeah.
It's on all fours, and it's walking with us. It never looks at us. All I can see is a profile of it. And what I seen was, you know, I hear people talk about they're so black they're blue. I don't know if you've ever seen an indigo snake, but they're so black they're blue. Most of them's in South Alabama.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Now I've seen some corch whoops, what we call corch whoops.
Yeah.
Most times they're brown, but I've seen, well, my daddy said it was a corch whoop, but it was black as soot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that son gone. If it'd been at nighttime, you wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this was the middle of the day, bluebird sky like today, sun's out, and this thing is just shining, and it's almost looks wet, and it's blue. It's so black it's blue looking, and the hair on it is wavy. The head on it, I remember the head was set. I couldn't even see a neck, but it looked like the head come out in between the pecs.
In other words, it stuck out more.
Yeah, but it was low. It looked like it was set low.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Down here.
Right, I got you.
And it's on, you know, like it's on all fours. And it looked like it, I didn't see no ears, because it looked almost like a afro. I mean, it was just the head. I didn't see no point on the head. It was just round. And it looked like, you know, the little, I don't know, black puff balls cats love playing with.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was just puffy all around its head. And like I said, it never looked at us. All I could see was a side profile, and there was no muzzle. There was no muzzle on this thing. It was flat.
Flat.
I never saw the face, and it never looked at us. It just kept walking with us.
So it stayed pace with you?
Stayed paced with us.
Now, how far do you think it was from you at that time?
Probably 20 yards,
Wow.
15.
Okay.
15, 20 yards. I'd say from here to where that little privet hedge is right there, maybe 5 yards past it.
Okay. Yeah.
15 to 20 yards.
So he was close.
Yeah.
But it never looked at you?
Nope.
Stayed on all fours?
On all fours.
Didn't have an oddball movement to it? Or
Yeah,
anything?
it didn't move right.
Didn't move like a dog or a cow or a
Nope.
bear or something like
Mm-mm. And one thing that I remember that stands out was the leg. The part that I would call the thigh was huge. And I really believe, you know, back then, you know, I knew about the Patterson-Gimlin film and all that.
Right, right.
And, you know, I always thought, man, it'd be cool if them things did exist. You know, and all my relatives, You know, I grew up in a hunting family, and I remember my daddy and granddaddy telling me, boy, that ain't nothing but a man in a suit, you know, because I remember the first time I saw it was in a movie theater, and it was like something that came out right before the movie aired, like a little short. And but this thing, and it wasn't no calf like we talked about, because back then nobody, I don't know of anybody that had black Angus cows. Everybody had Herefords.
Right.
You know, red cows
Right.
cows with white face.
Yeah, that's about all you seen when I was growing up.
And maybe
Angus,
maybe some limousines.
yeah, there you go. That's what I was trying to think
Yeah.
of a while ago, was the limousines. Yeah, you didn't really start, seemed like the black Angus didn't take a good hope till on in the 80s when you really started, because we didn't have them. My daddy had, you know, the Herefords and some mixed up cows. I don't know what they was, just old mixed up cows, but that's so. And was you able to smell anything? Didn't smell
No,
nothing?
Didn't smell anything.
Yeah. So the hair looked kind of wavy, and it was jet black, almost so black it kind of had that bluish tone to it.
And it looked wet. I don't think it came out of a creek, out of that creek I was
You think
talking
it's just
about.
shining?
I think it was shining because it wasn't dripping or nothing, from what I remember.
Right.
And we got a good look at it, and
it didn't make no kind of racket or anything. Just walk. And how far did it follow y'all, or stay parallel with
well,
you?
when I saw it, we stopped, and it kind of took a couple steps and stopped.
So it was pacing you.
And it never looked at us, though. It just kept looking straight ahead. Never looked at us. And I don't know, after the shock wore off, maybe 10 seconds, which is a long time
Oh yeah.
on an encounter.
Oh yeah.
It might not even been that long. Man, we did a 180 and went back to the house running.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I've ever, it was almost like an anxiety attack.
Right. The fear set in.
Right.
Yeah.
And we couldn't tell anybody because we weren't supposed to be over there.
Right. Yeah. And that property he's talking about, I know who actually owns it too, and because I'm fixing toward the end, I'll elaborate on something. But did your grandma and grandpa ever mention about hearing weird things around there at night, or did he ever hear them saying something about neighbors talking about weird stuff going on? Or
I know they had a in the backyard behind their house, close to where actually right above the clothesline, they had a mercury vapor light. I don't know if people know what that is, but a lot of people had mercury vapor. That's what you call mercury vapor lights. Well, they called it a booger light.
They called it the booger light.
They called it a booger light.
Okay. They called it the booger light.
So that kind of, I didn't really put
so
that
your grandpa
together.
may have not just wanted to come out and say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cause of ridicule.
Right.
I mean, he worked at Avondale Mills, and Avondale Mills.
Oh yeah.
Man,
back
everybody worked for them back then.
Right.
And
yeah, he was probably wanting to not say much about that.
yeah.
And that's prevalent with a lot of people. I'm gonna point it down the road a few minutes and let everybody see what I tell you. Them cedars. Oh, got a hoot owl going down yonder. Yeah, I'd asked Billy if he'd had anything going on here on this property, but he said he hadn't, except for you seen something a few years ago that was kind of odd.
I did. I was, it was during, I've always been an avid bow hunter, and, but usually when rifle season comes in, I put the bow down and get the rifle, especially during pre-rut or rut. And I was setting up in a water oak, setting up pretty high because I was looking down in an overgrown thicket, and these trees were about, I don't know, head high. And I remember looking to my left on my my wife's aunt's property. She had 90 acres adjacent to this property, and it was a hardwood bottom, and I saw what I believe to be a human walking through that hardwood bottom with a ghillie suit on. And after the whole thing ended, after this person walked through the bottom and then got to where I couldn't see it, I got to thinking that he didn't have a gun or a bow.
Didn't have no orange either, did he?
No orange. And this is during rifle season.
And did you know if your aunt had let anybody hunt or anything else besides you?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know if anybody else had permission or not to be in there.
Right. Right. But you never seen nobody else in there either, had you?
My wife's cousin, he would hunt in there some, but he wouldn't have no ghillie suit on.
Right. And
he was the type of guy where he'd go hunting with blue jeans on and a flannel shirt and sit down next to a tree, and he hunted with a shotgun.
Okay.
Whenever you
probably
saw
killed
him,
a lot of deer, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
And people think we're supposed to have camouflage, and them older guy overalls, old flannel shirt, and old ball cap, and they wear them out.
Best camo there is a plaid pattern. Is a flannel plaid.
It does
pattern.
Actually. It blends in. Yeah. I've seen that.
As long as the blue, I don't like the blue because I've always heard deer can see blue. So, but he killed deer with blue jeans on.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and they be smoking Marlboro with it too.
Yeah.
I used to get tickled. I used to be old guy on a hunting club. And he killed deer like crazy, and one day we put standards out and we was running dogs, and I had dogs back in, so us dog guys could move, which the way our dogs were going, and when you were the standards were, I'd come down the road and there he'd be puffing on that Marlboro, and he'd be in his overalls, and back in used to have those flannel coats. They'd have the wool like in them, and they're still like a shirt, but it was like I don't even know if they still make those or
like
not.
A chore jacket or a field coat or something.
Yeah, he'd have that on, and he had old orange hat that done. That sucker was so old, it wasn't any orange no more. It was more almost white. Where the sun, I guess, had bleached it enough, but that some gun killed more deer on people on the club than anybody. You know?
Yeah.
They'd be sitting there smoking that Marlboro, while he's doing it. So all these boys talking about scents, and I think back, y'all just don't know.
Man, yeah, there's a lot of gimmicks in the hunting world.
Yeah.
That people will blow money on. You don't need all that.
So after you got thinking about it, it was just very odd.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Yeah, why would somebody be in a ghillie suit with no weapon?
And no orange or anything. Yeah. Was the walk strange, or was it normal like a human?
He was kind of walking. It looked to me like he was kind of hunched over a little bit, not a whole lot, but hunched over just a little bit, and almost like a labored walk, if that makes any sense. Like not really struggling, but kind of stiff, kind of a stiff walk.
That is strange there. But you've never heard anything here at night, or that seemed oddball, or?
No, not heard anything. I have seen what I consider to be an orb on some property adjacent to ours.
Right.
What we call the back fence line.
Right.
That thicket that I was talking about, that I was set up on with my climber. I was actually hunting that thicket. I had permission to hunt it from a neighbor, and I had to get high enough so I could see down in it. When it got daylight with my rifle.
Where you could see down in there.
I had a scope, and but I'd get in the tree stand back then. I'd get in there early, hour and a half before daylight.
Right.
And I was sitting up in the tree stand. It was still dark, and I see what I thought was somebody coming in, you know, that thicket with a headlight on. Well, this was pre-LED headlights. And if you know what I'm talking about, an LED headlight has like a blue, like a bright blue look to it.
Right, right.
Well, it was still dark, but I could see that orb through my scope. What I say is an orb. And I'm looking through my scope, and that thing is just above the top of them, that thicket. And it's just moving in a random, like, it's not a straight line. It's just moving in random circles. Just random. There was no pattern to it whatsoever.
And too, if it was up above that, how tall was that stuff at the time?
It was probably, it wasn't as tall as these trees. There's no way it was that, but they were probably that limb coming off this pine tree.
Right there. So
right
probably
here,
in the 6-7 foot
yeah,
range.
it's probably 7 feet.
Yeah, so,
I guess about 7 feet.
So if it hadn't been a man with a headlamp on, he'd been a tall fella.
Oh yeah, that's Andre the Giant. That was Andre the Giant coming in there.
And you would have probably noticed his outline looking through the scope.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
That scope would have pulled in some light, especially with that light there.
Mm-hmm. Because there was, you know, it was putting off light.
But no, not a
beam.
Not a beam,
No.
but it was enough that it kind of, when it went over an area, it kind of illuminated it a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Sound like an orb. How big do you think it was?
It looked like maybe the size of a softball.
Right.
You know, just judging. It was
you,
probably 150 yards out.
When you were looking at it, which at 150, I know that's a good piece. But when you put it in the scope, could you see anything in it, or could you see that good enough?
No, it wouldn't. I've heard people say they've seen like something rotating inside or
yeah,
pulsating.
Like water. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
this was just a constant
light.
It was just a constant bright light. And it never, when it was moving around, it didn't like disappear and come back. Like if somebody had a light on their head and they're turning their head, the light would disappear. Well, this didn't disappear. But when it went away, it's just gone. And that was it. It didn't like, it's like you flipped a switch off. When it went away, it was gone. But during the whole process of it moving around in all them circles and zigzagging and all that above them trees, it didn't disappear and come back. When it disappeared, it was gone, like you flipped the switch off.
Right. Well, I know this place is close to some quarries. I'm not going to say what quarries, but it's close to some limestone quarries. A lot of cemeteries in this area.
Actually, there is a grave. It's a single grave, which is probably 200 yards from us.
Okay.
And yes, there is a cemetery probably, I'd say, a mile and a half from here.
Okay. Pretty old cemetery.
Yeah.
Church cemetery, or just a?
There's not a church there. It's just like a cemetery.
Cemetery.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now there is some back in the I'd say around 04, 05, Shelby County was doing some work on a bridge not too far from where we're at now, and they had to do a lot of excavating and stuff to do some repairs on this bridge. I think they actually widened it, if I remember right, and the bridge crosses a creek, which that same creek runs through our property.
Okay.
And they found some Indian artifacts. It was in the Birmingham News. This tribe, I forget what they called them, but they're dead. Their ancestors, they would put their skeletal remains in clay pots, and they would put them on their back. And whenever they moved places that they lived in, I don't know how far they migrated, but they would carry them with them.
Right.
They would carry their dead with them. So I don't know. I kind of always wondered if maybe that, that orb has something to do with that.
Yeah. Well, I know that at one time the Coosa River was kind of the boundary for the Creek Indian Nation. Most of them were on the east side of the river, but I know there was some on the west side in a few places, but most villages were Talladega County, Coosa County, down like at Elmore County, Clay, going toward Montgomery. Then they kind of widened out. I can't remember who, because pre-Creek would have been the Coosas, which was the Coosa Kingdom. I imagine they were probably on both sides of the river. I had to go and do some digging on that, and I know somebody we might can ask about that later on too, and he might could tell you exactly what group was living right here in this area.
Then you had there was a tribe called the Alabamians.
Yeah.
Were they around Wetumpka?
Yeah, they were
more west of
and they were part of the group that went into the Creek Confederacy, just like the Coosas and there were some other groups, the Natchez, and then there's even another small group that well, there's still some of the Alabamians left. They went to Texas. They actually have a reservation out there. But some of them got absorbed into the Creek Nation. That's like a lot of those that lived in the Sylacauga, Talladega County area. They wasn't Creeks at first. They were another really type of tribe, which would have been out of the Coosas.
Pre-Creek.
Yeah, pre-Creek. So, because they were a confederation, it's just a bunch of different tribes came together and made a confederation, and I'm not sure if all of them spoke the same language or not. I need to ask my friend that. I'll ask him, did they all speak the same language? And I imagine them being different, they had some different customs, that they would have done. So I'll have to ask him about that. But well, did your in-laws ever say anything about in here anywhere, about anybody
No.
talking about seeing anything or noticing anything?
No.
Okay.
I don't know that would have been talked about anyway back then.
Okay. Well, I know
how it was back then. That was kind of a
hush.
Yeah.
Taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only really got real popular for people to really start talking about it in about the last 10 years. Sister, now I can't handle Cameron and you in my lap at the same time.
Come here, sister. Oh, she's going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Say hi, sister.
She's a good girl.
Oh, she is. Well, going back to over at your grandparents at Sylacauga, and I know we talked about, they called that a booger light. Did they ever mention anything else about around the Oldfield community about other people hearing or seeing or noticing anything? I know you mentioned to me something about a white dog.
Yeah, my grandmother, this happened one summer. Like I said, we would stay down there a lot during the summers. I was probably younger than when I had that encounter, if I remember right. I can remember her being emphatic about this. She said that she has been seeing a giant white dog. And I remember her saying giant. Now back then, I don't know of anybody that had a Great Pyrenees dog.
I didn't start seeing them here the last 20 years.
Yeah.
When people got really into goats and sheeps. I mean, there's always been goats and sheep in Sylacauga area, but people didn't keep dogs with them,
right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm going to say, I think the first one I ever seen may have been in the early 2000s when I finally seen one,
But I remember her telling me and my sisters, I've got two younger sisters, do not go outside without me. And she had never, usually we had the run of the place. They had two big gardens and we'd go play, help them pick stuff and play all day. And like I said, I used to run around with my little Red Ryder BB gun shooting birds.
Right.
But that happened one summer, and then it ended. I don't know if there's anything to that, you know. But
y'all never seen it though, did you?
No, I never.
But
did
she
see
had.
it.
Okay.
She saw it. Yeah, it
Okay.
came up in the yard when she was hanging out clothes.
So for her to say that, there was something about that dog she didn't like.
Yeah, it spooked her.
Yeah.
It spooked her.
Well, I don't know if you've heard Coombo talk about the white dog that hangs out with Bigfoot. Have you heard that?
No. I've heard of cats running with the Bigfoot, you know, big cats.
Yeah. Well, Coombo, and here's what's weird. We had a big white one showing up at the house sometimes. I catch it on game camera. But when I'd go asking everybody, now there is one that runs around the neighborhood that belonged to a guy, but when I showed him the picture, he said, no, that ain't my dog. Sometimes this dog showed up when we were having activity. Coombo says that he thinks sometimes that dogs run with Bigfoot sometimes. So Grandma may have knew more than she was letting on, you know. Well, you talking?
It really spooked her though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something about the dog spooked her. So most time, old country women don't get spooked much.
Oh no, they're
you know,
salt of the earth. You know, a lot of grit.
Yeah.
And I mean, you couldn't really let stuff spook you. You know, you had to do what you had to do.
Right.
But I can remember also you was talking about, you know, my grandfather ever mentioning anything about it. Well, my dad and my granddaddy were big time turkey hunters. Man, they loved to turkey hunt. I've always been a deer hunter and I like to fish, but mostly deer hunt. And they dragged me along with them turkey hunting back in them mountains. You know, people remember where the meet and greet was. Well, Hollins,
Yeah.
that was our hunting grounds back in there, up around Bulls Gap, Rocky Mount Church Road, Wiregrass Road,
Oh yeah.
Trammell, White Oak, all them roads
Right.
back in there. We turkey hunted. Bobcat Road. But anyway, my granddad, his technique on turkey hunting is all he carried was like a wing bone yelper. He made out of a wing bone on the turkey. He'd yelp on it. And then he had a box. He had a Lynch world champion collar box, and he'd shake that thing to make a gobble. Well, he'd get on a ridge and he'd walk a ridge every 100 yards. He'd hit that gobble box to try to locate one. Well, if he didn't locate one on that ridge, we'd drop off that ridge and cross a bottom, and usually there's a creek in the bottom.
Oh yeah. Out there, it's about near a branch in every holler.
Yeah. And then we'd get up on another ridge. Well, I can remember 2 instances of crossing a branch. And when I say branch, I'm talking about a small creek.
Right. One you back to step over here.
Yeah. And seeing what, you know, I mean, I didn't know what they were called then, but everybody calls them a rock stack. Well, these weren't big rocks. There was usually the 2 that I saw in different locations. There was 3 rocks. You had, you know, the rocks were probably about that big. And on both rock stacks that I saw was a piece of white quartz. Now this white quartz is prevalent.
Oh yeah, prevalent
all
out there.
over Hollins and Talladega National Forest.
Oh yeah. There's some out there big as that truck in places.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the 2 rock stacks I saw, which were on different creeks, had a piece of white quartz on top. And I remember asking my daddy and granddaddy, you know, I mean, I was old enough to know that don't just happen.
Now something made that.
Yeah. And I remember asking them, you know, what did that? And they said, that's probably just darn coon or something. And I'm thinking, no. I didn't tell them that.
Yeah.
But I thought, no. I mean, I had enough hunt sense to know a coon didn't do that.
Right.
And why would there be a white piece of white quartz on top.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, most time coons knock down stuff.
yeah, yeah.
The way they are, their curiosity gets a hold of them.
And then later in life, I got to thinking, you know, well, I wonder if Granddaddy had put those, you know, on that branch, on that creek,
As a marker.
as a marker to let him know where to cross to hit the next ridge. But he knew them places like the back of his hand.
Man, he didn't need it, yeah.
And it was only I only saw that 2 times.
That is strange. Now, that would have been in the late 70s, early 80s.
That would have been probably in the mid to early 70s.
Okay.
Because I was little.
Just little.
Yeah.
Talking about, I guess, ironic. When I finally found out what Billy's name was, his last name, I knew some of his people. I said, okay, because, you know, that name's fairly prevalent in that area. So, but what I was going to tell everybody is when Billy told me about his sighting, him and his cousin, I already knew there was stuff there. By another friend of mine that happens to be kin to Billy, that I used to work with, that was a big deer hunter, turkey hunter, duck hunter. And in 2008, and I've told everybody on a video earlier, maybe a year and a half ago or something, about his sighting, him and his nephew seeing a booger there on Crooked Creek, which would have probably been from where you seen that.
Yeah, because Crooked Creek runs in on the edge of that pasture, if I remember right.
Right. So where you seen what you seen and where him and his nephew seen, probably wasn't 1.5 miles apart, maybe 2 miles. Not far from there to the south on what we call Brickyard Road, is where a girl, her sister, lived with their grandmother and were experiencing boogers. They were seeing them. And this one I ain't told, I'll tell it real quick. The Psycho community, which above Oldfield. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Now that's before you get to Sycamore, right?
That's before you get into Sycamore.
Yep.
That's on the old highway. A guy that I'm telling it secondhand, because the guy who actually it happened to does not live no more, but I was told by his cousin that he worked at the Avondale Mills in Sycamore. He was on 3rd shift. He was heading to work. He was on the old highway. There, what they call, what's the name of that creek? No, it ain't Talladega, it's the other one. I can't think of it. It's right there in them pasture bottoms. It runs into Talladega right there before you get to 21. But he had a flat tire. This was about 10 o'clock at night. He worked 3rd shift. So he pulled offside the road. And he gets his stuff out and starts changing the tire. Well, he hears footsteps coming down the road. He doesn't have a flashlight. He said it's just enough light. I mean, I think he used his cigarette lighter to light to see the lug nuts real good and see what he is doing. But he hears these footsteps coming down the road behind him. The footsteps are getting closer, so he's just thinking somebody walking down the road at night. Well, the footsteps were the person who he thinks is a person is getting very close to him. He said gets within 20 or 30 foot of him and stops. And he speaks. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" Well, the person don't speak back. So he's thinking, man, this person's odd, you know. Anyway, the person starts walking toward him. And he said, "Hey, you need to stop. You know, you ain't even spoke to me, and here you are getting closer to me." He said, this according to what his cousin said this guy said. So it's secondhand, so I don't know what's been lost there. This person approaches and gets close to him, within a few feet of him, And he comes up with his tire iron and swings at the person because the person has never spoke to him.
Mm-hmm.
This person lets out a scream that he said wasn't a person scream. It lets out a scream. It tanks back off down that road. There's a big pasture there, and he knows it leaves the road, and he can still see a little bit of it, and it clears a fence like it ain't nothing there and goes across that pasture. And that boy hurried up and finished that tire and got out of there. Now, this would have been in the early 70s when this took place. I don't know why he kept thinking it was a person, because to me, if I spoke and he didn't speak back, I'm already going to be like, okay, what kind of problem we got here? You know, this person's got a problem.
And but back then, a lot of people didn't walk up and down the road in the middle of the night, especially a small community like that right there.
Right. So, was it a booger? I don't know. I mean, we'll never know because that guy's not here now, and he didn't really give his cousin a very good description, but he did say it was on 2 legs. But when it took off, it screamed and went and jumped the barbed wire fence and went across that pasture screaming. That don't sound like a normal human being, you know.
No.
I mean, if I was gonna break and run, I'd probably run back down the road.
Sure.
You know? So, what he experienced, we'll of course we'll never know, but it almost sounded like a booger approached him.
Oh yeah.
And
that's what I would think. And you know, for him to just swing at it, you know, something had him on edge.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, but I mean, the first thing that had me on edge is the dude not speaking back. You know, I'd be like, okay, he's got there's an issue here. You know, he won't speak back to me, and then he starts coming to me, and I'm sitting here with no flashlight. And I'm like, I got a tire too. I'm gonna probably swing it too. So, but that's another one I was gonna tell you that I don't know if I'd even ever mentioned it to you. That's not far from where your grandparents lived at. So there's a history in that area.
Oh yeah.
There's a history back and forth. And I've heard other people talk about stuff around Sycamore.
Now Sycamore, I can't remember the cut through. Do you turn at Psycho or Sycamore to go back towards Hollins? You know, you can cut through.
Well, you can. There's 2 roads. There's actually 3 out there. You can turn there at Psycho, and you'll come out right there almost at Rocky Mountain Church.
That's where I'm thinking of, right there.
If you
right there is where he had where this guy was broke down on the road.
Yeah,
Psycho.
Yeah, he was right at Psycho area. Yeah. There was pasture land there but at one time, and it may have been growing up, you know, Avondale had a dairy up there between Psycho and Sycamore, big dairy. All that in there, if you're heading towards Sycamore, all that into the right. It's all pine thickets now. That used to be their dairy. But right before you got into their mill village, there was another road that you could turn on to the right, and it would come out a little further up Wiregrass. Then if you go on up another one, you'll come out up there what they call Bernie Station. They call some of that in there Lost Motorway.
Okay.
You've probably heard that term, Lost Motorway. So that's a big area. There's sightings around Sycamore area, Riser's Mill, which that ain't far through the woods really, because Talladega Creek goes right through those areas. You know, Crooked Creek dumps into Talladega. So, I mean, there's just history of stuff in there. Right. You know, so.
Mark, I'm gonna grab my jacket out of the truck.
Go ahead. Whatever you need to do.
Boy, you can feel that cool air.
Yeah, when that shade come in, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna stop the video just a minute.
Okay.
Then we'll start back. All right, y'all. We took our little break and we back real quick. So, one thing Billy also does that some of y'all may know, he does a lot of hiking. And y'all heard me mention the Pinhoti a bunch of times on these videos. So Billy's had a few things happen while he's been hiking, and I'm gonna let y'all let him tell y'all a little bit about that too. So go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, I like the section height, the Pinhoti. The Pinhoti runs from Flag Mountain down in Coosa County, and it goes up into North Georgia. It almost ties in with the Appalachian Trail. I think it's 353 miles. I think that's what the Pinhoti length is.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, I've done over 100 of it, which I just I'm an old man. I take my time, and I most of the time I'm by myself, which a lot of people frown on that, but hey, that's what I do. I hammock camp. I don't tent camp. I find 2 trees to hang on, and I've done some night hiking on that Pinhoti, hiking up late into the night by myself. This one instance, I was above Bull's Gap on the Pinhoti off of Skyway Motorway is the name of the dirt road. Right. Pretty rough road.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, the Pinhoti Trail crosses that road
several times.
Right. Well, it was in April of 2020, and that evening I had run out of water. I knew I had to have water that morning, which I make coffee. I carry these little coffee tea bag things that's got coffee in them, and then for like instant meals, stuff like that. So I knew I had to have water that morning, so I found a draw coming off the mountain on my topo map, and I found some water coming out of the mountain. So I figured, well, I'll set up right here. Well, I just found a little bench on the side of the mountain that was probably, I don't know, it was probably 6 feet long and maybe 2 feet wide. And that was the only flat spot I could find. So I hung up on 2 trees there, and it was quiet all night. I mean, yeah, you'll hear deer come in on you, and usually when they wind you, they'll snort.
Right, they'll blow.
They'll blow and they'll stomp.
Right.
They love to stomp that foot and blow, especially them does. And anyway, that morning, I remember it was something woke me up. I looked at my phone. It was 6:08 in the morning, and then I heard the god-awfulest scream. It was across this draw to another ridge. It was like 2 finger ridges that come down, and there was a like a big gully in the side of this mountain, what I call a draw. And it sounded, I've never heard anything like it. It wasn't a fox, it wasn't a cat. I don't know if y'all know what them cranes sound like, them birds, they make a pretty wild noise.
Yeah.
It wasn't a crane. It was too powerful. It was just, I didn't feel any vibration go through my chest, but I know it scared me to death, and I got out of there pretty quick that morning.
You know how far you was off of 148 up Skyway?
Off of 148 or off the road?
Well, from 148, how far back were you on Skyway where you took off trail and went in that draw? How far you think you were, maybe?
Actually, let's see here.
Why I'm asking that, there's one road, I don't know, maybe a mile or 2 up in there.
I mark all my campsites.
Okay.
And this right here, and I'll show it to you when I get it pulled up.
Was you off the left side or the right side?
Off the Skyway, I was off the right side.
Okay, so you was...
And that drops off, so a lot of them branches, a lot of that water that runs outside of that mountain goes into Hatchet Creek.
Makes that little hatchet.
Yeah. Isn't there a west hatchet?
There's a west and there's an east hatchet, so it'd probably be getting in the west hatchet. Yeah. Then they go down further, and little hatchet comes in down there at Hollins down there. Yeah.
Right.
That's the one that comes out of the meet and greet where we was at. That's the little hatchet.
But there is a, let's see here. I can see that.
Well, I was just wondering because There's some other people who have experienced stuff up there on Skyway. In fact, I talked to a guy this past weekend that experienced something up there one night. He actually seen something jump off side the mountain when he was riding Skyway at night time.
Yeah. Was he one of the likes riding in the Jeeps?
Well, no, he had a Toyota truck. Him and his wife just like to ride. And let's see.
There's 148.
Right
there.
Okay.
There's a Pinhoti.
Okay.
And there's that Skyway motorway kind of runs right there with the
Pinhoti, yeah.
With the Pinhoti. And then check that out. On X Hunt, they even have an icon for a Bigfoot. Now that right there.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
That's where I heard that scream, and this here was where I was camped on that side of the draw.
Okay.
I had taken a photo of that.
I know about where he was at.
And this is, let's see here.
Sorry, y'all, about coughing.
Let me get into the app.
Okay.
And you that's kind of in relation to where.
Okay, cool.
148 was.
And which app is this again?
On Hunt X.
On Hunt X. I'll have to download
On X Hunt, I'm sorry. Okay. On X Hunt. Yeah. But that's a pretty good app though, and you can
that's pretty good that you marked that spot. I like that.
Well, yeah, whenever, cause me hiking by myself.
Yeah, let somebody else know.
What I do is I'll mark a spot and then I'll send those GPS coordinates to my wife.
Right. That way she knows where. That's a good thing to do.
That's what I like doing there.
Really, if you're gonna hunt, and even if you're going Bigfoot research, you really need to do that. Let somebody know where you at, just in case. 'Cause you never know when you're gonna step in a hole or,
that's right,
or break a leg or fall and hit your head on a rock. And
okay, there's Skyway motorway right there.
Right.
Pinhoti.
Right.
And there is County Road 662A. There's Greenfield right there.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about.
Well, if you drop off that Greenfield about 75 yards down that hill.
Yeah. I know where you at.
That's where I was camped right there. And then that screen was on top of that ridge right there.
Well, let me say this. Here we go again. There's a guy, if I could get him to come on YouTube, hunts at the foot of the mountain down there. He won't hunt there no more.
On the Hatchet Creek side or the other side?
On that Hatchet Creek side. He used to come in on the management area in there. I ain't gonna name the road, but that road comes in there, and that's where he had one try to get between him and the truck. He got a good look at this thing. Now, if I could get him to come on, because that ain't the only one he's seen. But so we're right here in the general area again where something's went on. So that's why I love to talk to people, because you get to talking,
you narrow it down.
You start going like, well, this guy seen it right here, and this guy heard this here, and it's almost in the same area. So it starts telling you something.
Yeah, isn't there some farms down in there?
Yeah,
on
the
some other big, side of Hatchet?
On the other side, there's some big farms down in there, and but the management area actually goes down to County Road 7 there for a little piece. And in fact, I'm gonna say this, I probably shouldn't. Some of my ex-wife's people own some land down there.
Oh, hoot owl.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sound like a barred owl.
Yeah.
They fixing to start cutting up.
Yeah, it's getting about time for them to start breeding. They usually start in March. But some of her kinfolks own some land in there, and they had a farm. It was fruits, vegetables, that type of stuff, sold trees and all that. He's out of business now. I'm not going to bring his name up, but he might not appreciate it if he's seen this video. But that son going to put up a 10-foot fence down there all the way around his property, which I know some of that was probably for deer. But he had cameras everywhere. Now, why would you have cameras everywhere for deer?
No.
And I mean, I was going to ask him one time, why you got all these cameras up out here everywhere? I mean, he had, because I know, surely to God, folks ain't coming in there stealing trees at night. Man, it could be a possibility this day and time. But I noticed he had cameras everywhere. And he had the monitor in his store. And he had that farm where he could look at every angle of that farm. You know, and I was like, and he's got this 10-foot fence around it, which I know part of that is to keep deer out. I mean, of course, because he's growing all kind of vegetables. He's growing, fruit trees. I mean, you name it. But the camera thing, what got me. Now, I can see, have a camera on your road coming up to your place. I could see your outbuildings. This son gun was looking, he had cameras on the corners, looking out into the field. Now,
it'd have been a lot easier and cheaper to run electric fence around all that.
Yeah,
if it was deer. If he done it for deer. You know?
I almost asked him a couple times, and I said, I'm going to just keep quiet.
Yeah.
But what I know, the dude that had the one try to get between him and his truck wasn't but a mile from there.
Yeah, that's why he did it, I guarantee.
I guarantee. Yeah. And he put them cameras up, but I mean, we'll never know that for 100% fact. And see, this is some stuff that I really ain't told nobody. I kind of keep to myself. Because I don't want to give away people's properties and get,
right. But,
so,
that's courtesy. You just got to give people.
But he's out of business now, so nobody can find him. So, but
there's one other. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I just wanted to bring that up, while I was talking.
There's one other instance that happened one night, and I was camping. I had just got out of Cheehaw Wilderness. I had made it through Cheehaw Wilderness, and I was just out of that area.
Now, was you coming south or going north?
I was going north.
Okay.
Yeah, going toward Anniston and Oxford.
Okay.
And I got out of that, and I had got down in a big ravine, and it was nice and flat. And I had a wall on one side of me, it just about went straight up, and then I had a creek. Like, here's the wall. I'll set up right here. Had a creek running right by my hammock, and then on the other side of the creek, there was like a gradual, not a wall, but a pretty steep ridge that went up there. Well, I was laying in the hammock, and man, after you hike all day, you're
tired.
Yeah, you take what hikers call it hiker's crack, Tylenol. You take some Tylenol because your legs are killing you.
Right.
So I took some Tylenol, and I'd done eating everything. I'm laying in the hammock. And I don't know, I'm going to guess it was around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I mean, I could feel it in the hammock. It was like a thump. Didn't no tree fall. It wasn't no deer hoof in the ground. Because I got up the next morning. It bothered me so bad, I got up the next morning looking for a tree that had fell. It wasn't no crash. It wasn't no popping, break-in. Usually you can hear a tree like hitting other limbs and stuff coming down.
Oh, yeah.
Or, a deer hoofing. Usually when a deer hoofs ground, they're going to blow.
Right.
And it wasn't that. But it was just a heavy thump. And I believe something jumped out of a tree. That's what I believe. I believe there was a booger in there, and he was sitting up in a tree, could have been a juvenile, watched me sit up. And after I got in my hammock and it settled down,
he left.
He jumped out.
But you didn't hear nothing else?
I didn't hear footsteps.
Or anything.
All I heard was a heavy thump. Now, I've heard of people talking about thumps coming out of the earth. I don't know what that is, but that's just what I feel like happened. Was the booger jumped out of a tree and hit the ground.
Yeah. And
he was ready to go.
There's been some reports right north of Cheehaw, right before you get to Chockalaka in there. But
which, I mean, I like that. I got the Chockalaka shirt on right here.
Yeah.
I love Chocolaca.
Yeah, it's
Man,
pretty.
that's a awesome management area.
Yeah, a lot of boogers up there too. I've been wanting to do some camping up there, go to Pine Glen, and there's some more hunter camps up there too that I'd like to check out one day. I know there's one called Big Oak. I think Wendell went there the other day.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one. I can't think of the name of that little
Me
hunter.
and my wife is camped at it's called Skeeter Creek or Skeeter Branch,
Okay.
and it's a primitive. I mean, it's just like a little small hunter's camp.
Yeah.
It's not like Pine Glen or nothing like that.
Right.
But
Didn't notice anything there. Out
no,
there.
we didn't hear nothing. That was in let's see, when did we do that? I think that was after the meet and greet. I think that was in November, maybe. No, it was October. It was in late October. It was cold that night.
Okay.
There's some geese.
Yeah, I hear 'em. Must be a pond close by.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I know it's getting late, and I won't keep you. I know you probably ready for supper, and I'm gonna have to get ready to start heading back to Chicago here in a minute.
Yeah, you got a good little ride.
But I really appreciate you telling me
Yes,
all
sir.
the stuff you experienced, and maybe it gets a little warmer weather when you ever want to go riding back down in there,
Oh yeah.
do some reminiscing. We'll go.
Oh yeah. Shoot yeah.
And then if we, I'm gonna try to do some camping later on. I hadn't really nailed down some times, but I'm gonna try to do some camping, and I'll let you know. And if it's where y'all want to come, you're more than welcome to.
Oh yeah. Shoot yeah. We'll have to get together sometime and get my boat and go down on that Tom Bibby River and look at some. I like to look at them banks at night, shine them banks.
Yeah.
You know, and man, you see all kinds of tracks. Now I've never seen a booger track. I have never seen a booger track. I want to see one, but I feel like that would be a good place to find one. It's somewhere down there on that Tom Bigby, in between Demopolis and around and up to Epps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up in that area.
Yeah.
Or maybe on up to Gainesville.
There's some
you know.
there's some booger reports from Epps. Yeah. There's some in there. Alabama River would be a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
And the Coosa, kind of hard to do the Coosa because they raise the water up and down so much. And,
Yeah.
And the only place you could really do the Coosa would be get down below Spring Creek before you get to the dam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there ain't hardly no houses in there much. And they got some big old deep flues, you know, that go back on the Coosa County side. You could get in there and might look around. And we camped one time on Mitchell. We went back up in the Hatchet and camped where Hatchet and Guff could come in there. There was some weird stuff went on that night. We didn't see nothing, but there was some stuff up on. We was out in the boats, you know.
Yeah.
But there was some weird stuff going on. So, but we'll have to do some of that.
Shoot yeah.
Was there anything you'd like to add before we get off here? Or?
Well, no. That's just some of the experiences I've had, and from my hiking and hunting and childhood days.
Well, I appreciate you telling me.
Yeah, I've been out in the woods a lot in my life, and you know.
You know what everything looks like too.
Oh yeah, what gets me is people that say they ain't around, and they ain't hardly out in the woods ever.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
I don't.
I
You
know.
know, I don't understand that, but
Well,
it is what it is.
well, you mind if we say a little short prayer?
No sir, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Lord, thank you for everything you do for us each and every day. Thank you for your Son, the Holy Spirit, Lord, and thank you for letting us be able to just sit down and talk about this stuff and let people tell their experiences and what they've seen. And Lord, be with everybody that listens to this, or the people in our chat and just having a lot of sickness and health problems. You be with them, Lord. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I appreciate it, Billy, and
Absolutely.
I appreciate you letting me come over here, sit on your property, and tell me about your experiences. And And appreciate you supporting me and Rebecca and, on our channel, and be willing to talk to me about it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad always to hear from other Alabamians, especially somebody from my area, you know. And I mean, of course, I want to hear everybody's, but you know what I'm saying. And,
I didn't realize there was that much booger history down in that area right there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I need to carry you up on Creepy Mountain one day. We need to go up there. And
I've always wondered if quartz has got something to do with it. Quartzite.
Well, we do know quartz probably has a lot to do with paranormal. And I meant to ask you, had you had any paranormal stuff happen before? I know the orb is kind of, I guess you'd say, in the paranormal, but...
Yeah.
Well, we'll do that another time. We'll go through that. I won't wear you out today.
Yeah, I had one instance, but
Okay,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk some more about that. Because a lot of times this stuff somehow is related a little bit. I don't know how, but it's related, so...
It's almost like you get tagged.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think you do. I think once you acknowledge them, it starts more and more happening. So you could start having more stuff happen. Especially you've come out and talked about it. I hate to tell you that. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you might want to pay attention a little more on that Pinhoti.
Man, I just want to cast a footprint. That's what I want to do. I'd love to do that.
Well, I'm gonna do a video. I will say it. I found a track at the house last week. I'll show it to you here in a minute when we get off the video, but I am going to do a video on it. 18 inches long.
Wow.
And we had some other stuff happen, so I think deer seasons went out. So most of the hunters are going out of the woods, except for probably a few squirrel hunters, a few rabbit hunters. I think since hunting seasons went out, food's got low in the woods. There's not a lot of browse. The acorns are probably gone. Everything, you got a lot of the seed. So I think stuff gets to roaming this time of year. Plus, a lot of breeding going on. Squirrels, rabbits, birds are getting ready to nest. Some deer are still breeding. No telling about the others, beavers and muskrats and all the other animals, you know, that's breeding this time of year. So I think they get real active, and the boogers, I think, get active. They know hunters ain't there right now. I mean, we're still 3 weeks away from turkey season coming in. So, and of course, there's not as many turkey hunters as there are deer hunters. So, but now I get a lot of reports from turkey hunters.
Oh yeah.
I think turkey hunters come up seeing them more than most people,
Sure.
if you can get them to talk.
Yeah. Because you got that, when everything starts greening up.
Yeah.
I think when they get that little bit of cover, which I mean, they're a master. They're the master of the wilderness anyway. So if they don't want you to see them, you know, unless you just happen to slip up on one, which I don't know how you could do that, but
they're the ultimate woodsman.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
Ultimate woodsman.
Sit there motionless for hours.
Yeah, they do. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll y'all go support all our other friends, and everybody love one another, get along, take care of each other. We ain't on this earth long, so it's better to be kind and try to get along with folks than it is fussing and fighting. So
that's right.
There's a lot of folks fussing and fighting these days, boy. Whew, Lord have mercy.
Just to fuss and fight. Yeah,
just to fuss and fight. But we love y'all, and we'll talk with y'all later. This is Mark, Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead, live with another fireside chat. We'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.